Gross? Not gross? It is both.
We've seen resident foodie Andrew Zimmern eat some very strange concoctions on the TV show Bizarre Foods, and we documented several of them in part 1 of this video. However, there were more foods that Zimmern couldn't stomach. See if you'd be able to handle any of the 10 foods that Andrew Zimmern just couldn't eat. Part 2.
I usually say if it looks good, eat it. I think it looks really good.
Spam.
Oh, hell no. My mama's so poor she opened a Gmail account just so she could eat the spam.
We know what you're thinking, and we're thinking it too. From a man that's eaten the most unsavory parts of a moose, eating spam should be like frolicking in the McDonald's play place. Well, it turns out that Mr. Zimmern has an extreme aversion to some common foods as well. Spam is apparently one of his most hated foods, and he had to force himself to eat it, as revealed in a bit of seldom seen footage.
I've considered it my mission in life to rid the world of spam.
We know better than to lecture people about personal taste, but in all reality, really, Andrew? It seems that even with a lead-lined stomach, some people still return to past traumatic food experiences when choosing what they eat. And apparently, Spam and Andrew have some history. Not to worry, Mr. Zimmern, you keep eating rotten chicken intestines, and the rest of us will take care of the Spam for you.
Don't mind if I do.
Cane toad.
Ribbit.
The cane toad is a gigantic tropical toad that's also referred to as the marine toad. It's a massive creature that has been introduced to many parts of the world for domestic applications, such as ridding farmland of pests and vermin. Over the years, in certain parts of the world, it's become rather invasive, and to top it all off, the toad secretes a toxin that is highly venomous.
Poison!
So what's the next step when someone comes across a poisonous species? Well, eat it, of course. Andrew Zimmern ran into this strange cuisine while he was visiting Australia. Cane toads are an absolute hit down under, and Andrew knew that he wouldn't be getting out of the country without trying them. The locals were taken aback after Zimmern helped them catch a number of the invasive species and afterward set to cooking a few of the toads and eating them. Even though they're incredibly poisonous, the cane toad actually has many positive health effects, including being full of omega-3 fatty acids, which promote heart health, among other things. While Zimmern claims that it's not the worst food that he's ever eaten, we're going to wager that he didn't ask for seconds.
I'm gonna have to pass.
Kocho.
You like bread? Yeah. Have some.
Kocho's a strange dish. It's a bread-like mixture of fermented enset pulp. The stem of the enset plant contains a fibrous material that is processed down into a sticky paste and then left to ferment for anywhere between 3 months and 2 years.
Long.
It's a staple of Ethiopian cuisine and has been used many times in the country's history to ward off famine when food stocks were low. It's an acquired taste, to say the least. Mr. Zimmern did not have many kind things to say about this strange food. Even though Kocho is a staple for around 15 million people on a yearly basis, Zimmern remarked that it was one of the more horrific foods that I've ever eaten. High praise from a man who makes his money eating rat skewers. If he says it's bad, then we'll have to defer to his judgment. Ethiopians aren't listening to the haters, however, and we don't think that one review from a TV personality will replace the centuries of tradition that goes along with Kocho.
Obviously.
Jellied moose nose.
What?
Moose is a rare kind of lean meat that most people will never get to try. This is a shame because wild game like deer, elk, and caribou have been sustaining cultures for generations. The push for farm to table has made many people seek alternatives to store-bought ground beef, and these options have jumped to the forefront as alternatives to greasy red meat. Another thing that we've lost as a society is the idea that we should use every part of an animal in the butchering process, a tenet that Andrew Zimmern lives by. So it should come as no surprise that Mr. Zimmern was convinced to try a strange offering while he was visiting Alaska. Jellied moose nose is a dish that comes with all the boxes found in the name being ticked. It's a less common part of the moose that rarely sees use, and for good reason. Sliced moose nose is added to a fat-laden stock that will jellify when it's frozen or cooked. What ensues looks a lot like a meatloaf, and Andrew Zimmern remarked after trying it that it tasted like corned beef.
Look at the marbling on that corned beef!
If you have a hankering for the more obscure parts of an animal and bologna just isn't cutting it, don't be afraid to put yourself out there and try jellied moose nose if you see it on a menu. That's if you can even find it on a menu.
Good luck with that.
New to BabbleTop? Then how about hitting that subscribe button? It's not like we're asking you to actually try anything on this list.
I owe you a thank you.
Suri Grubs.
Can we not talk about worms or sewers or rats today with all these people in here?
Another local delicacy puts our star host through the paces. When Andrew Zimmern was visiting Peru, it didn't take long for him to come across this strange offering. Suri Grubs, or more commonly referred to as coconut tree grubs, are gigantic larvae that are harvested from plants around Peruvian forests. They're massive in size and make the common maggot look puny in comparison. Suri grubs can grow to be up to 4 inches long, which means they're a hardy bit for anyone brave enough to step up to the plate. When prepared, they're often skewered and charred, and this is where the great is separated from the gross. If underdone, they leave a lot to be desired, which was Andrew's major problem with them. He's quoted as saying, "These protein-rich grubs taste like crisp rolls of charred chicken skin if they're cooked properly. If not, they taste like pus bags filled with rotted, digested wood." Another raving review from our resident Travel Channel host. If you end up trying these massive grubs, make sure the person preparing them knows what they're doing.
I think it's done, Chef.
You think it's done? You sure?
Because it sounds like they can be truly disgusting if prepared improperly.
Wow. It's actually quite bad.
Lutefisk.
Trash is fish! Fishy!
The northern Midwest of the United States is not the first place people think of when looking for good cuisine. There are a number of famous dishes that have rolled out of the middle of the nation, but apart from casseroles and other fledgling foods, this region of the country has failed to make its mark on the larger culinary world. One offering that natives of Minnesota were quick to bring to Andrew Zimmern's attention was Lutefisk. It's a traditional Scandinavian food that was brought to America by immigrants and cemented as a time-honored dish for special events and ceremonies. What's so strange about fish, you might ask? Well, it turns out that the preparation of this particular dish garners much confusion. The process starts by taking the lutefisk and soaking it in water for almost a week. The water is changed daily, but by the end of this process, the fish should have soaked up a considerable amount of the water. This sponge-like fillet is then taken and soaked in lye for another few days until finally it ends its journey by taking another quick 6-day bath in cold water.
It's been 84 years.
After this process, it's either baked or steamed and served plain. The resulting flavor can be quite polarizing. Zimmern was quite taken by the fish, and we're not sure it was in a good way. He describes the fish as gelatinous with a very mild flavor. Lutefisk isn't and never will be a staple in American cuisine, but there is a small sect of people looking to keep tradition alive. You won't find this on any Red Lobster menu.
Yes, I eat the fish.
Dung beetles.
By the way, good luck in your next life as a dung beetle.
Dung beetles are a powerhouse of the animal world. They eat a byproduct that most other species choose to ignore, and in doing so, provide a service for the food and agricultural industry. Dung beetles are known to follow around larger animals and collect their waste. It's kinda their whole shtick. Well, it seems that we couldn't leave these strange insects to their own devices, because in Laos and Thailand, they are a veritable delicacy. Purveyors of this strange food spend a lot of time flying around the dung heap.
What did you say?
That's because this is most often where you'll find dung beetles. When Zimmern visited Thailand, he knew that a large portion of the population was used to eating insects, so it came as little surprise when he found a stall serving dung beetles, which he claimed had a nutty yet swampy taste. He's really selling it, isn't he? Well, if you're one of the billions of people who doesn't enjoy eating bugs, you can take solace in the fact that dung beetles are a sustainable food source, which also performs a service for the world at large. Getting hungry yet?
Should we try it?
Let's whisk it.
Balut.
Just a taste. Chicken.
We're guessing that most of you have never heard of this next dish, and yet, strangely enough, it remains a staple in certain countries around the world. To put it plainly, balut is a chicken egg that has been allowed to fertilize for around 10 to 15 days. This means that the baby chick inside has already started to develop. At this stage, it's then taken out of the hatching process and shipped around the world to be enjoyed. So what does this mean for the consumer? Well, in short, this means that every egg that has been harvested for for sale as Balut comes complete with a little baby chick inside of it. Why would anyone do this? Well, it turns out that the fertilization process imparts a one-of-a-kind flavor that people go absolutely nuts for. The yolk is reported to taste like chicken soup, and for whatever reason, people crave the crunchiness that comes along with eating a tiny, underdeveloped chick.
No soup for you.
This means that you'll be crunching through bones, skin, cartilage, and even beak. It's easy to see why most cultures have overlooked this delicacy, but the countries that do enjoy it don't care in the slightest. Andrew Zimmern came across this strange delicacy when he was visiting the Philippines. Balut is a cornerstone of their cuisine, and it's not uncommon to see mobile vendors and street food shacks slinging balut to hungry customers all day long. Don't worry, you're not eating raw chicken embryos or anything. They're boiled for safety, at least.
Oh, right. Well, that is good to know.
Palolo.
Has anyone seen a worm? Because this chicken's hungry.
One of the strangest items on our list is also one of the rarest. Palolo is a rare type of sea worm that can only be harvested for one day in the fall during mating season. They crawl out of the coral reefs of Samoa, and this is where chefs and food connoisseurs alike come out to capitalize on the strange occurrence. The worms are harvested and sold much like any local produce and can fetch a hefty price due to their rarity. Palolo are unique in that this strange sea worm is able to detach its head from its body, which means that when you're enjoying a hefty plate, you're eating a bunch of headless worms. Palolo is said to taste a lot like seaweed or caviar, but with the texture of slimy noodles, which, when you see a plate of the worms, it'll make a lot of sense. While the flavor and texture is certainly polarizing, the sheer elusiveness of these strange worms should warrant a try, shouldn't it?
Maybe next time, Deshaun.
Rotten tomato ketchup.
You put ketchup on everything.
We're not talking about the bottle of Heinz that can be found on tables all across the world. No, this ketchup is bold, unapologetic, and just plain gross. We think that someone might have pulled a fast one on old Andrew. This sounds like a practical joke. On a lesser-known episode of Bizarre Foods, Andrew Zimmern was visiting Missouri to see exactly what the state had to offer the world of culinary arts. He visited a small shop who claimed to have one of the best condiments to ever grace this green earth. What was the name of this exotic and alluring condiment? They called it rotten tomato ketchup, and the sheer sight may be enough to turn your stomach. The condiment is made by allowing tomatoes to rot and ferment for around 6 days, which brings an entire microcosm of mold to the party. Once these tomatoes have been allowed to ferment, the entire mixture is boiled off for safety. Andrew Zimmern is usually very respectful of the cultures he visits, but in an interview, he didn't hesitate for 1 second to label this creation as disgusting.
No ketchup! No ketchup!
While the sauce is meant to invoke the fermented and deep flavors that you find in the South Pacific, it's clear that for Zimmern, this offering missed the mark. The footage from the show is really the only receipt that we need. If you're inclined to make up your own mind, however, there are still little pockets of the South that make rotten tomato ketchup, but don't say we didn't warn you.
Don't try this at home, folks. I'm a trained professional.
Spice things up with another great video. Just tap or click, leave us a comment, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell to join our notification squad.